This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk about a busy news week. This was one of those tsunami news coverage weeks, I think, between all that has happened at the Olympics. And if you've been following, man, have you had a lot to digest there. But also the resurgence of COVID here in the U.S., sadly, new mask and vaccination mandates that are going into effect, and I think rightfully so in this country. And as we tape this, a blockbuster lawsuit just announced against Disney Plus and Disney over the release of the Black Widow movie. And I, having just read a couple of articles there, I'm officially Team ScarJo. So let's see how that works itself out. But there's just so much going on. And, it's times like this that I take the opportunity myself and in my work to kind of reassess the media landscape, because part of what we do as public relations professionals is know when to pitch and know how to pitch. That's sometimes even more important than what we're pitching or what we're talking about or who we're trying to get to. There's only so much bandwidth in any reporter's day, in any media outlets space. And so really, I think timing is really critical. And this has just been a very challenging week to pitch anything that you want to place this week. And so I like to take weeks like this when you've got a lot of media coverage and pitch for the future. Say, okay, we can do this story next week. We can do this story in 2 weeks. Or this is coming up next week and you can go and see this and then report on it the following week, or however you work that out. But wondering if you're doing that too. Hit us up on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and let us know how your pitching has gone in the context of this very, very busy media landscape that we're working in right now. But you're not here to hear me talk. You're here to hear our guest. And today we have a very special guest all the way from the UK. So let's get right into it. Carrie Eddins is better known on Twitter as Blondepreneur. She bills herself as a chief connection officer, humanizing public relations and content. She adores celery juice, fruit, animals, trees, and chat. It sounds like she has got life down to a T. She is also the host of Blonde About Fortnightly Tweet Up. Carrie, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Oh, thanks, Jody. I'm honored to be here. That's really lovely. Thank you.
And thank you for spending some time here. Now we're finding you in the UK where you live and work. And so if it's the afternoon here in the East, it's the evening where you are for sure.
It is, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about how things are there in the UK right now, and then let's get into what you do and the people you work with.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it's been a very, very strange pitching week as well, to be honest. Myself and some of my PR colleagues would say it feels like everybody in the UK, we're in a slightly different stage with the COVID situation. So people are going on holiday. So it's like people have slipped off the edge of the world here. So it's like crickets, it's kind of, we've all been pitching and there's been nothing, because it's almost like a lot of people have just, they're out of the office, emails, and everybody just like, we've hit a limit. We need to just chill for a few days or a week, or it's sort of like that really. So it's been quite strange. And yeah, I think people have just had so much of it's like I say that like we've got kind of global post-traumatic stress, that we're all like, well, normally we'd be like really heartbroken that really horrible thing happened, but because we've had so much for the last 18 months, we're all like, yeah. So we're kind of in a weird space really. We're split as a country. There's like people who are still very anxious, and then those who are just like, no, I'm just going on holiday. That's sort of how it is here.
Wow. And I think it's similar here in the US, and as we're taping this, mandates and things are really ramping back up again. And I think sadly so. I think it's the right thing to do. But I also think it's really sad that we find ourselves here because we didn't need to be here. And I think in the US, we probably loosened up the reins just a little too soon. So now we're kind of getting that bounce back effect. And then, as you explained, We've also got the people running around who are politicizing public health, and that just doesn't serve anybody.
No, it doesn't help. It's kind of, I just feel like, you've got to do what's right for the individual and what's right, for the family, and focus on that really instead of turning it outwards. I think that's when it's just too stressful for everybody. It's kind of, but it's tricky. It's not, we've never been here before, have we? So it's a tricky situation to navigate,
We certainly haven't. We certainly haven't. We certainly haven't. Well, you were alluding there too to how this is also affecting your business. And so let's talk a little bit about your business. Tell us about what you do with your clients, because you have a really unique type of a business.
Yeah. So what well, I mean, I self-taught myself in public relations, really. I didn't go to school or anything like that, or university. I studied peace at university. But I basically, I was an early adopter of Twitter, and I spent a lot of time on Twitter, a bit too long, and a lot of Twitter chats and things like that. And
Guilty.
it's like, oh my God, yeah, I know that, exactly. It's so addictive. And I kind of discovered that Twitter was my strength by accident. And then I combined PR just literally by chance. I tweeted a couple of years, it was probably it's 3 years ago now, 2018, early 2018. The story goes that this lady I knew called Annabelle Kay, who's a GDPR expert that I knew. I know it's a dry subject, but she's the only person who made sense. So, and I was playing around with different PR strategies, and because I was building my PR business, I didn't really want to shell out a lot of money for like one of the expensive databases. You probably got them in the US. So I was just like, okay, well, I know Twitter, so I'm going to do this. So I literally got a tweet and I tagged a few people who I thought would be receptive to her tweets, put the hashtags in, and it literally got her booked on like a BBC Radio 4 program talking about GDPR on a panel, and it was a complete fluke. But and then it kind of evolved into a process that I do. So I kind of teach people how to, because it's really underutilized in the with companies generally, but definitely in a PR capacity, because 80% of the media are on Twitter, probably more actually, to be honest. I mean, I know they're on Instagram, but obviously it's a slightly different platform, and we know the news literally breaks on Twitter. So whereas pre-Twitter, people would be like ringing up or emailing the news desk when a breaking news story happened. Now you can literally do it on Twitter, and you can kind of, I mean, I've had clients where, like, for example, on a Blue Monday. Do you have Blue Monday in the UK, in the US? I think you do, don't you?
No, go ahead. Blue Monday meaning
Blue Monday.
context.
So Blue Monday. Basically, I mean, it's a commercial thing, but it's kind of a thing where on one of the days in Monday, I think in January, I feel it's the last one when people have had like this cold, dark winter. It's called Blue Monday, and it's just acknowledging that people are fed up and they're waiting for the spring to happen. So it's kind of
That's just every day for me from January 1 through March 30th.
Oh, really?
I can't stand those months. They just
you see, I love them. I love the deep, dark winter, cold winter. I'm like, I love it. Honestly, I love winter. So on this particular day, it's like a day where, so there's lots of stuff in the media about like Blue Monday. And so a lot of PRs I know, they would have got their pitch in to talk about, with their therapist clients or their coaches, for example, to talk about Blue Monday. And I said to my client, Sally, I said, no, let's just, because there's always last minute opportunities that people just miss on Twitter. And I said, let's just put some tweets out. Let's just put the right hashtags in. And she literally, within hours, she was quoted in the Daily Telegraph online, like by tea time. And it was just because the journalist just was looking for the hashtags and then found the content. If you give the right content, they're going to find, and especially if it's original content, then there's you stand a great deal of opportunity of them actually taking it and using it. And, so I sort of kind of, I suppose I've like newsjacking in the 21st century, because obviously it wasn't done like that before. But I've kind of evolved the process, and I kind of get my clients to get a breaking news story, so I kind of take it up a notch, and to quote what they think about that news story, tag a few key journalists. So even if they don't pick it up in that day, it's a record, it's a thought leadership micro record, and it's really, and obviously it's good for traffic, it's good for authority, and the journalists use it as content, quite often, more than you actually realize.
That is so fascinating what you've just described, the way you've built this business and what you do for your clients, because and there were so many terrific takeaways in there. Because one, I agree with you. Twitter to me reminds me of the Associated Press newswire. When
Yeah.
I was working in newsrooms before I was in public relations, you had that, and this is going way back. You had the printer in the corner of the newsroom, and it was just constantly spitting out printed stories from the Associated Press or Reuters or whatever. And to me, that's what Twitter reminds me of. It's just this
Absolutely. Yeah.
constant news flow, right? But then on
Yeah.
top of that, it's even better because, as you described, it's not only searchable, but it's engageable. You can engage
Absolutely.
with a group of reporters on there who are covering a particular beat. You can engage with a single reporter. You can then migrate that to a specific conversation. And I
Yeah.
love what you said too about creating a record, looking at your clients and what they are saying. It creates a terrific record for people to refer back to and reporters to refer back to show their credibility
It's a
and their
really good
perspective.
credibility one, yeah, because it's overlooked because it's kind of, I think people just think it's like we have to have long blog content or long content, and actually a tweet, because as well as I, just they go into the search bar on Twitter and they can literally find out the latest tweet about a particular subject. So if they're tweeting with the right hashtags, obviously, and if you're tagging the journalist, you will just come up. I mean, literally, some of the, for example, with the a few years ago with the Michael Jackson film, one of my clients, my therapist client, was kind of, I taught how to live tweet. That's another level, to live tweets about things that come up in the trends. And she was literally headhunted by the Huffington Post in California. I mean, and she's been headhunted by loads of people because of how I've taught her how to live tweet. But it's just that people just, I don't know why they don't sort of see that, but we've got, and whether you're working for yourself or you've got a PR, your PR can kind of tweet it out on their account, and then the journalist will come to your account and contact you. That's what happens to me. But it's kind of, it's gold dust, but it's been so underutilized. It's kind of
Yeah,
big.
and it's amazing to me too. I mean, how obvious it seems, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yet I feel like so few people, and present company included, don't really do that, right? We focus so much on working with the client to develop a pitch, to sort of write out a some piece of long form content, whatever that is, deliver it, find the right reporter, deliver it directly to that right reporter, and then, cross our fingers and hope that they get back to us. Where you could, and even if you wanted to do that, you could also be doing what you're describing,
You
which
can
is
do
really
both.
proactively just pushing that information out, and as you said, hashtagging properly, targeting the proper journalists, and going directly to them. And it also, I'm putting myself in the journalist seat as well here. They've got so much to do in a day. um,
Absolutely.
Sure, they can go back to their Rolodex of, I'm dating myself, Rolodex, but they can go back to their contacts, like the 10 people who they talk to, and just pick the next one they haven't talked to. But so much easier if they get thrown something via Twitter and they're like, oh, that's perfect, I can use that. Or, oh, that person's great, let me go talk to them. Not inferring for a moment that journalists just grab whatever they see online and just print it wholesale, even though you've described that has happened.
Yeah, they do that sometimes. But I mean,
Great
you
way
don't
to
know.
connect with people.
But it's just, even if they, like you say, even if they just see it and they'll store it, because obviously you would now have got this incredible functionality on Twitter. We can bookmark it, so we can kind of, you used to have to copy and paste. You can bookmark the tweet, so they could just bookmark the tweet and then go, oh, I'm going to go back to Jody or Carrie or whatever. They'll go back, and they do, because then it's, especially if they're on a tight deadline and they just need a short quote, or because I think the other thing that I find very powerful about Twitter is its relevancy, isn't it? So it shows that the person, the expert that you might be working with, or if you are an expert yourself, it shows that you're bang up to date, because loads of experts that I work with, that they're not in the loop, they're not relevant. They might have, maybe 6 months ago or a year ago, they wrote a book about something, or they've got this business, but they don't know what's going on now. So if you tweet about what's going on now, it makes you look and sound totally up to date and relevant, which is what they want, don't they? That's what the journalists want.
It's so great. I am totally gonna steal this idea if you don't mind, and I'm gonna start using this with some of my clients, because I think it's brilliant, and it sounds like you really do it well. Let's talk too about the types
Well,
of clients you work with. And you were telling me before we started taping that you like to focus on emotional connection and content. Would you like to talk about that a little bit and sort of explain it a little?
yeah. So the process that I do with my clients, I call it soft PR as a kind of as a way of labeling this. So how I teach them to communicate is through soft skills. So it's kind of bringing Brené Brown into the PR world. So for example, in the tweets, I know that like if you want to get attention, you be controversial and you're loud and everything. But for me, I think if you can soften up your language and soften up your communication, I still believe now, even more so now actually, because people have had it with shouting and we've got global post-traumatic stress. When you're using your soft skills like empathy and listening and patience and kindness and lightheartedness in your communication, you create emotional connection and with anybody, obviously the journalists as well, and they remember you and they see you as a human being instead of just somebody who wants something from them. Because I think a lot of PRs, tend to, and people tend to go at them and like, give me this, and they're really entitled and they're very grabby, and it's like they're a human being doing a job. So if you can use your soft skills, you create an emotional connection with them, like heart to heart, instead of, so for example, how that looks like on Twitter is that I will use emojis or I'll use gifs or things like that. And like I remember a few years ago somebody was saying, before I did used it in a PR capacity, they were like, oh, that's not very professional. And actually it's really professional, because it's showing, actually now in all the social media and marketing world, content marketing world, they're like, actually you've got to do, we want your, it's humanizing communication, isn't it? So
You have hit on the to use a UK reference, the Willy Wonka golden ticket there. Humanizing, what is that an appropriate reference? I'm
yeah,
sorry.
it's completely cool. Yeah, no,
But
brilliant.
it's so true that the best and anybody who's listening to this who does PR, raise your hand. The best relationships you have, the best press you get is with reporters with you whom you have a relationship that is a human one. It doesn't have to be a friendly buddy one, but when you can talk straight to a reporter and you can give them a good story, and be friendly with them, and you have because you have a good relationship with it. Those are the best stories. That's the best success that you have for your clients. And so I think that's super smart. I love the GIF response. I do that all day long on Twitter.
Yeah, no,
I think it's
I'm a gift queen.
I think it's so much more fun than
Yeah,
typing the word yeah or I agree. And there's so many GIFs out there that are just ridiculously funny.
yeah,
And
they are.
because they also have that added what's the word I'm looking for? That's kind of social relevance, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's a GIF from like Ted Lasso or it's a GIF from Star Wars or it's anything, like
absolutely.
you
Yeah,
name it, right? Like people get it, they get what you're trying to say, but they get the subtext too. Um,
absolutely. I do a lot of Bridget Jones. I do a lot of Bridget Jones gifts, when she falls over in the mud in this like white jeans, and I'm like, oh, that was a moment, and it's it's just funny and it's memorable, and it softens people up in a communication situation. I mean, how can it not really? It's kind of, and if it doesn't, there's, somebody said to me, like, has ever not worked? And I said, probably once or twice, but that's minimal. And they weren't really the people I really wanted to communicate with. So it's cool. I would say it's those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. It's kind of really Dr. Zeus back at you, it's
I
like,
like that. I like that. Now let's take that into the types of clients that you work with, because across verticals, you told me you work with very different types of clients, a barrister
oh,
here in the US, an attorney,
yeah.
but personal coaches, therapists, small business owners, very different types. Do you throttle your strategy and the way you work with them depending on their business, or how do you manage that?
Um, I mean, I could have, if I wanted to, just specialized in coaches and therapists, for example. But I think I just get a bit bored personally. So I quite like, and how I work with people, I need to really like them as a person, and they need to like me, because I do work in quite a different way to a lot of PRs. It's quite intuitive. It's probably not really that rational. all of my best results come from not following the rules and breaking the rules. It's kind of, I don't really go, oh, dum, dum, dum. It's sort of, it's not A to Z. It's a completely different, not even using the alphabet kind of thing. So um for me, the most important thing is that I like the person and they like me. The emotional connection is there from the start, and that I feel that they're coachable. You get a feeling about whether people are coachable in the first conversation, to be honest. And we don't always listen to it, but we do get a feeling. We kind of go, oh, you're right for me, or no, you're not quite right for me. And so that's sort of how it works, really, Jodie. And I find that, like, I've worked with a couple of people now in the legal profession, and they're they can be very articulate, but they're often too stuck in their front brain, which I probably would say for like most of the people I work with. So you have to kind of bring them back into the limbic and go, right, let's speak more emotionally, let's relax. Yes, you're an expert, but let's again, it's humanizing it. So I would say that the challenges are quite similar, really. It's just kind of, because it's, once you've heard one comment, you've heard them all. So you have to put what's trademark you emotionally into the how you communicate. And I created this process called a connection recipe, which actually came from a Twitter chat that I was on. We were talking about, this was really early on in Twitter, so it's like maybe 2007, and it was a Twitter chat, probably a content marketing chat. And this was when loads of people were like, oh, it's all about the data and the facts and the figures, and I tweeted something like, but content without connection is like tea without cake. I was like, you need both, and I was like, you need them both, that's it. And so I created this process called the connection recipe, where I go work with people, and this is all kinds of people. I can do it with brands as well. And we kind of we work out, we brainstorm and heartstorm what is trademark them emotionally in a positive way, and then we whittle it down to 5. And then I've got a process, like a connection recipe guide, to help them basically weave in their recipe, so the 5 qualities that are trademark them emotionally. Because when they use them, then people start to recognize them. It stands out, because even if you're using facts and figures, what you want to do this is why emotional connection is so powerful, is you want things to bypass the brain and go to the heart. So you do that with bringing content that's emotionally connected. So, and if you take it to the next level, which is a connection recipe, then you bring what's trademark you emotionally. So people getting used to your emotional flavor, then they start to emotionally invest, i.e. care about your content, which obviously is a huge thing at the moment, because attention is precious, and it's even more precious now. So they start to emotionally invest. And when they emotionally invest in you and your content, they're more likely to financially invest, more so than looking at data and metrics and everything like that. The days of, oh, I'm impressed by your facts and figures are kind of gone now. People are much more like, oh, I need to feel a connection with that person, or it needs to mean something to me to work with that person. So that's kind of what I do as well.
That is so important. And I love the way you describe that, bypassing the brain and getting to your heart, because I think that, again, perfectly describes what you're talking about, humanizing the content and making the personal connection with the person you're pitching. The person, and we've said this a million times here on this show, you're asking these people to give something of themselves, their time, their column inches in the newspaper, their airtime on the radio or TV. They have to put a lot of work and effort into creating the story that you're asking them to create. If you create that relationship and that human bond, that human connection right off the bat with what you're pitching, it gets a lot easier, don't you think?
Yeah, it does. And like, as you know yourself, Jodie, you don't just want one piece of media coverage. You want them to come back to you, don't you? So you've got to kind of go, yeah, okay, I could piss them off a little bit and be controversial and be this, and this, but is it worth it in the long term? No, not really, because very few people, with the exception of certain ex-presidents, can get away with it. Most people and some celebrities, most people, Jodie, just can't get away with that, can they? Because it's like, it's a bigger game. Because quite rightly, the journalists have, they remember things, which is fair enough, because they're human beings. It goes back to, they're human beings at the end of the day, aren't they? So you want to be respectful. You want to go, you want to play the long game. Sometimes they can't use you. Sometimes they edit it. You just got to be compassionate, empathetic, understanding, and go, yeah, I totally understand that you did that, Jodie. Okay, looking forward to next time, and you're kind of nurturing. It's nurturing as well. So much of this is nurture, 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 and eventually they come back. When the timing's right. You said that at the start. A lot of it, so much of this is about timing, Jodie. It's like, and there's no kind of cookie cutter shortcut to get the timing, is there? Loads of people want to logicalize the process of PR, but I think it's a lot more mystical than people make out, because it's timing, and you've got to just have faith and trust that the timing, it was going to work out, that what you keep putting out there is going to come back at some point, because it does. It always does, but often when you don't expect it to, and in a way that you don't expect it to.
These are amazing words of wisdom, Carrie. I think everyone should take this into the week, and inject this into what they do, because I think we get so wrapped up in the results that we want to produce for our clients that we forget what you're talking about, which is making this a real human business and a real human journey with the people that we're working with, not just with our clients, but with the reporters that we're engaging with, and frankly, with the audiences that those reporters are serving.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can never forget that we're never, we say this a lot, and I know you know this too, that you're never just talking to the reporter, you're talking to their audience. So what does the audience expect to get out of it? Well, if it comes from that human place that you're talking about, it's always going to hit in the right spot.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think more than ever before, people want you to reach into their hearts, to be moved, to be inspired. They want to go on that journey with you, don't they? They want, yes, they want they might, if they are sad, then they want to sort of see how it can be turned around. We're really at a place in humanity where we want hope, we want things to look forward to, and we want fun, we want all those things, don't we? So if you can communicate that, and we want safety. So some people, like some of my legal client, we need to communicate the safety aspect. That's really important, isn't it? Because a lot of us are very unsure. So yeah, but you can do that with empathy and compassion, and I think it makes, like you say, a massive difference. But another thing I was going to say, Jodie, is that yes, PR is storytelling, but obviously social media has made it much more accessible, and the media has evolved. So it's a lot of opinion sharing, isn't it? So again, that goes back to the tweets. So it's like, that's why I get my clients to share their opinions about stuff, because again, if they showcase their opinions to the world live on Twitter, it just shows that they are an authority. You don't need to write a book. You just need to send a few tweets out that really showcase, actually, this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for. And again, that makes them attractive to the media, doesn't it? And the world, really. It's kind of like, this is my stall, this is what I think, and this is like very very of the now. You don't need to just email privately to the journalist. If you could do it like that, it's quite gutsy, but it really shows your capacity of your ability to be in the media. I mean,
This is incredible advice, and I am definitely stealing a lot of what you explained to us today, and I am taking this into my business. Absolutely, absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation, Carrie.
thank you.
Let us segue now into our rapid fire question segment of the podcast.
Okay.
If you heard us before, this is where we steal a page from the Inside the Actor Studio television show. We ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions. This is fun, right?
Okay.
Meant to elicit just a simple answer, maybe a laugh or two. So with your indulgence, let's begin. Rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
I probably look at the BBC, the top one, really.
Okay.
In this country, yeah, it's just the easiest. Yeah, it's probably my favorite because it's a starting point.
Rapid fire question number 2. What is your favorite social media platform?
Oh, Twitter.
We knew the answer to that one before we asked it.
Yeah.
All right. Rapid fire question number 3. Coffee or alcohol?
Oh, it'd have to be alcohol because I'm not drinking tea or coffee anymore.
Oh, okay, there you go. Very good. All right. Well, I'm not drinking alcohol anymore, so I'm coffee. So there you go. All right. Rapid fire question number 4. What is your favorite on the run food?
Bananas.
Oh, love it. All right. Very good. Rapid fire question number 5. This is the philosophical one. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
Probably a fiction writer.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. All right. Well, Carrie, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for spending time with us. Please let people know how they can find you online, whether on your website or on social.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Twitter at Blondepreneur, and hopefully in a few days, when my website's back up, you can find me at the Blondepreneur with an E. So BLONDEpreneur.com.
Excellent. We will definitely look for you. Carrie, thank you again for spending time with us here. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Apple. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and online at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.